Rella faces the horrible crisis that she forgot to pick up a dress for an upcoming gourmet party. As a result, Ranma is coerced into getting it under the threat of smashing his cars. As he heads back with dress in hand, he considers catching a film, Lady Fighter 4. A girl runs up to him, pretending to know him as she claims she's being chased by a landowner. Meanwhile, a pair of criminals are looking to pass a toy bear off to Son's hygiene, with their only knowledge of the courier they're meeting being that it's a young woman. Ranma's stuck tending to his escort's needs until she can meet back with her father, supposedly a kung fu master. He asks for her name, but she cuts herself off at Yi. The pair of criminals approach Yi as Ranma takes a bathroom break and give her the bear. As they prepare to leave, they run into Wendy, who recognises them as members of the Scorpion Death Rock gang, leading them to realise that Wendy was their courier. Ranma gets roped into clothes shopping with Yi, while the Scorpions try and fail to get the bear back. Every time Ranma tries to break away, Yi claims her stalker is tailing them. They end up at an amusement park, and Ranma gets stuck riding a Ferris wheel and a roller coaster. The Scorpions follow, but aren't able to retrieve the bear. Yi's father calls, telling her to meet outside the park. As she runs to get something to drink, Ranma catches a trailer for Lady Fighter 4. He recognises the star, Yi Lan Rain, as the girl who's been carting him around all day. She confesses that the man tailing them was her manager, as she ran away from a location shoot in order to have a normal day. She tries and fails to get Ranma to stay despite this. Ranma soon hears her calling for help and spots the Scorpions kidnapping her. The Scorpions mention the bear contains a money plate that was intended to be used for counterfeiting. Ranma hijacks a boat and gets Yi to jump in. They jump to land but get cornered in an alley. Luckily, the Scorpions are out of ammo. Yi gets ready to fight, but admits she was bluffing as they run off. The Scorpions left their car, so Ranma takes it and gives Yi a ride, asking what she wants. Before she can decide, the Scorpions make another attack, this time with dynamite. Ranma's injured as Yi runs into a cinema. The Scorpions follow and open fire. Thankfully, all they hit was the money plate. In the confusion, Ranma drops some seating on the Scorpions. Fortunately, the audience figure the whole thing was just a publicity stunt. Everything that's happened has convinced Yi to continue acting for now. Unfortunately, Ranma's injuries pass to Rella, and she's not happy about having missed her party, declaring they really need to reverse this body sharing. A bit fillerish in nature, but not a terrible thing. We did just come off some fairly heavy backstory, and the ending of this episode suggests that the big mystery of the series is coming to a head. With only 13 episodes, sometimes a bit of downtime's needed. Alice learns of a scandal regarding the Secretary of Defence, and is ordered to find Dr Grimm as soon as possible. Meanwhile, Ranma is paid a visit by Dorothy, who provides him with a laser ring. On her way back, Dorothy's offered a ride by Alice. Alice then calls Ranma, saying he has 24 hours to find Dr Grimm or Dorothy's life is forfeit, also hinting it might be in his own interest anyway. Ranma pays Pinocchio a visit, who reveals he knows Dr Grimm and his biotechnology research quite well. He disappeared 2 years prior, however, but he offers to keep an ear to the ground for both Grimm and Dorothy's location. Meanwhile, Dorothy's been listening in on Alice and mentions she knew Dr Grimm herself as they both went to Aesop University. While continuing to search for Dorothy, Ranma is contacted by Pinocchio. Meeting in an abandoned bowling alley, Pinocchio provides Ranma with the photo of a man named Nero, supposedly a courier for Grimm. Someone heard a man claiming his greatest work was mankind's future in an old house that just so happened to be close to Ranma and Rella's crash site. Unfortunately, Nero's in prison right now. Pinocchio was followed, so he and Ranma launch a counter-attack. Pinocchio is more than prepared, allowing Ranma to get away for the moment. Alice is visited by a man named Jackal, who says he's taking over and finding Grimm. Ranma, meanwhile, gets the idea to hold a man up and get himself arrested to meet Nero in prison. He puts on a show of not wanting to be near him, and the guards provide him with Nero's location. Having smuggled the laser ring in with him, he cuts through to Nero. Nero offers to tell Ranma everything if they can escape. Midnight strikes, and Rella puts on a show of Nero attacking her. It's all a ploy, of course. Rella's taken to Grimm's lab, and it triggers her memory of the night of the crash. Nero explains that Grimm was in a nearby park that night to work out a mental block. He found Ranma and Rella at the crash, barely alive. A week of experimentation later, the two become one and Ranma's returned to the crash site. Grimm would then disappear with a bunch of funds, though Nero covered for him when Alice came to investigate. Mentioning what he describes as a muscle monster he saw in a photo, Nero suspects Alice is part of some military organisation, but claims he's still not sure why Grimm even performed the experiment. Meanwhile, Alice learns of Nero's prison break, but claims Ranma's still of use. She suspects Grimm will want to get into contact with him, plus Ranma's not around right now anyway. Left alone, Dorothy types a message for Rella saying she's somewhere west of Kirin Tower Hotel near running water. Going on this, Rella tracks her down to a filtration plant. Before she can move in, she's stopped by a man who reveals himself as Dr Grimm. We're close to the end, and finally getting some answers on the Midnight Transformation. If you've been watching the series, you'll likely have noticed an old man making some background appearances, suggesting he potentially had some significance. Going on that, it can be easy enough to put two and two together based on this episode. All in all, coming together quite nicely, I'd say. Rella approaches the base and gets taken to Jackal. Her aim is to negotiate Grimm for Dorothy, naming a place for an exchange. Jackal grudgingly agrees, but has his men on standby to take out Rella and Dorothy. As Dorothy and Grimm meet in the middle, they race off together, throwing the plan off. Worse still for Jackal, Son Taijin has been tipped off about his presence. Jackal's team gets overpowered, but Alice manages to fire a tracker on Grimm. Rella takes everyone to the office to prepare to go on the run. Grimm recognises Dorothy, but she and Rella consider just turning him over for what he did to Ranma and Rella. Grimm reveals that his experiment was for humanity's future. He's theorised that humanity will run out of food in the next 100 years, so merging two bodies into one will double the amount of food. He plans to go further with it, eventually merging everyone into one glorious whole. Rella's not impressed, but Grimm reveals that the Neverland Foundation that Alice and Jackal work for are aiming to make an enhanced human, with a prototype known as Peter already existing. This is all interrupted when Jackal grabs the office. Dorothy puts her inventing abilities to use, tearing apart the office for a quick device. This comes together in the form of a Da Vinci-style helicopter. They manage to land, but Jackal still has the superior firepower. By sheer luck, Aramis manages to pass by. Rella's driving results in Aramis's car falling to pieces. They split off from him, and he gives the Foundation the runaround. Alice realises they've moved to the sewers despite this. Rella follows the sewer system to the Bloody Shark's turf. They help her out due to a connection to Ranma. Alice has managed to trace them thanks to the tracker, though Jackal also gets wind of their location. Rella decides that maybe it's time to swallow her pride and ask her father for help. She heads out to find Billy and borrow his phone, only to run into the Foundation, who also take Grimm. Worse still, she's lost track of time and midnight strikes. Ranma does recognise the troops as they were dressed in the same uniforms as Pinocchio's attackers. He runs into Jackal, who shoots him now that Grimm's in his possession. I've seen crazier ideas for ending the food crisis, I suppose. It was amusing seeing Dorothy's MacGyvering in action, and even Rella considering how Ranma's likely to react to them using his cars for it. I think if I had one criticism here, it's that I'd have thought Rella would realise that one of them has a tracker after a while and would do a search for it. I guess you could justify it as they're in fight or flight mode or something. Jackal flies Dr Grimm to Neverland Foundation's base, an artificial island. Greeted by their leader, Hook, he reports that Alice is tying up a loose end. Ranma awakens to the sight of Alice and Dorothy, who helped patch him up. Brought up to speed, he vows to get Grimm back as he's their best chance of being returned to normal. Grimm's cell is guarded by security that will eliminate anyone and anything not registered on the island's database. Grimm remains defiant, but Hook holds the lives of his former assistants over his head if he doesn't help them develop their superhuman. Alice finally returns to the island herself, while Rella makes an infiltration underwater. Rella snaps some photos of the base, but security manages to catch her in the act. She's planted several bombs around the base to cause a distraction. Hook orders her found, unaware that she's managed to reach his office. She hacks into his main computer and heads in the direction of Grimm's cell. The security droid scans her, but hits an error as midnight strikes and the transformation confuses its circuits. Hook realises the bombs were a distraction, and spots Ranma on surveillance. In response, he unleashes Peter. Ranma fights, but Peter proves immune to bullets. As he punches through a wall, Ranma aims at some steam pipes above. This distracts Peter and sees him fall, at least for the moment. Meanwhile, Hook learns that Rella has sent an international broadcast claiming that Neverland has declared war on the world. As Ranma reaches Grimm, Hook activates the self-destruct. They make their escape but run into Peter, back on his feet. Hook encounters Alice as he escapes, but she's not interested in helping him, wanting Grimm for herself. Peter arrives but seemingly turns on Hook. Turns out it was just a rubber suit, courtesy of Dorothy. The real Peter was destroyed by the security droids as his existence was so top secret that there was no record of him on the database. Alice takes aim at Ranma and Grimm, demanding his research for her own purposes. Grimm turns over a microdisc, though when she leaves he reveals it was just a collection of photos of his dog, and the real data is all in his head. There's still the issue of the island exploding, but Dorothy comes to the rescue. Unfortunately, upon returning to Kirin, Grimm flees, not wanting to return Ranma and Rella to normal, as they're too interesting as an example of his research. From there, detective work returns to relative normalcy for Ranma and Rella, and while Rella's annoyed that they're not back to normal, she hopes when Grimm is found again, she and Ranma can go on a date sometime. I feel there was about a 50-50 shot of Ranma and Rella being returned to normal. The series does have comedy to it, so Grimm declining and running off feels in tone at least. While we never got a follow-up, it also did leave the door open for more too. Santaijin is still at large, and Alice probably won't take her defeat lying down. The bigger threat of the antagonist that wants to exploit Grimm's research has gone down at least, so overall I'd say this works pretty well as a finale. On that note, Cinderella Boy has ended. Honestly quite a fun series with a good cast and premise. Ranma and Rella do bear resemblance to Monkey Punch's better known characters, but it's pretty superficial and they manage to stand out on their own personality wise. It was interesting seeing how the cases they took came together, as well as how their respective skills worked towards solving the problems that came up. The world design is also nice, with a mix of recognisable visuals mixed in with some pseudo-futuristic tech, such as, for example, the hovercars. Animation is generally competent enough, and 3D CGI is, thankfully, used sparingly, as in my opinion it tends to clash with the 2D imagery. Plus, admittedly, I might be partially associating it with a certain other Monkey Punch adaptation that came out around this time, as the 3D CGI was pretty badly implemented there. I think for criticisms, I feel there were a few things that didn't really get any payoff. Despite Tinkerbell being Rella's main information source, they were never really utilised outside of a few appearances. Granted, we still had Pinocchio, who was certainly entertaining and felt more in line with the detective genre, but it would have been nice to have a bit of balance. As mentioned, Santaijin is still out there too. Problem there is that he seemed to fade out of relevance in the second half of the series. There was of course the bigger problem of Neverland by the end, as well as an exploration of Ranma and Rella's past taking up several episodes. But for example with stuff like Lao, they seem to be building up to a confrontation that never really happened. Maybe they were saving it for a movie or new season, though given we're about 20 years on from the end of the series, that's not too likely to happen now. This all said, it's mostly me being over-analytical. For something that came off a very short manga chapter, we got a pretty solid series. Certainly potential to go beyond this initial 13 episodes with some one-off cases, as even if they could be fillerish, that's no bad thing as long as they're entertaining. Unlikely as it may be now, I'd certainly check out anything more that comes from this series, and I'd say to check it out yourself if you want to check out something a bit different from Monkey Punch. Until next time.